Thank you so much. Welcome, Douglas County, to the August 18th, 2022 Finance Committee of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. I am Kelly Robinson. Today, I don't have video access, but I do have remote access, and we're going to keep moving. We got a pretty full agenda today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First, we'll establish roll call. I'm going to go around the room, and Madam CFO will come to you later, and shortly thereafter. So, existing voting members, we're going to go around and do roll call. Kelly Robinson, Chair of the Committee, present.
Frederick Perry, Deputy County Administrator, present.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, Assistant County Administrator, present.
Rhonda Jackson. Oh, he called Rosalind. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Ramona Jackson Jones, the Vice Chair of the Finance Committee. This has been confirmed.
How long is this?
Rosalind, you there? I think I heard you.
Rosalind Miller, Finance.
For 2 hours.
All right. So we have all five, well, we have 4 voting members, and so that establishes a quorum. So as a point of order, as is always when we have new members to come, what I'd like to do is take this time for the existing members, which is me, Deputy County Administrator, and Madam ACA, and Rosalind. We have to now vote to affirm Madam Chair as seat her as our Vice Chair. We also need to add Madam CFO Ramona Bivens as a voting member, and Rosalind Miller will stay as a member but non-voting, so we can keep our odd numbers. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to make the motion to officially add Dr. Ramona Jackson Jones as Vice Chair of the Finance Committee of the Board of Commissioners, and also add our new CFO, Madam Ramona Bivens, as a voting member, and to now make Director Rosalind Miller now a non-voting member, but still a member of the committee.
Second.
That's my motion. Can I got a second from Fred Perry? Thank you, sir. Any questions? All right, for the 4 existing members, we'll go around the room and give me your affirmation or not. Kelly Robinson, yes.
Frederick Perry, yes.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, yes.
Rosalind.
Rosalind Miller, yes.
Very good. We got a full unanimous vote. And so now we have a new set of members. Welcome all. Welcome back, Madam Chair, and Madam CFO, welcome back. Welcome officially to the team. Now we're going to go ahead and get started with our order of our agenda. The first order of business, and Madam CFO, you read the meeting minutes. You read it, and then we'll go from there. So the first order of business should be adoption of our last meeting minutes.
So yes, sir. So you should have received a copy of the Finance Committee. First of all, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Deputy County Administrator Perry, and Assistant County Administrator Tiffany Stewart Stanley, and the rest of the committee and guests. So on the approval of minutes, the first item is the Finance Committee meeting of June 21st, 2022. You should have received that in a packet from Ms. Rosalind either on Friday or earlier today, as well as the second item, the Finance Committee meetings of July 18th of 2022. So hopefully everyone has read those, Mr. Vice Chair, and so we present those to be approved by the committee.
We got it. Yeah, we got it. So members to the committee, can we get a motion to adopt the meeting minutes of June 21st, 2022 and July 18th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any questions? We'll go quickly. Kelly Robinson, you vote yes.
Frederick Perry, yes.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, yes.
Ramona Bivens, yes.
Chair.
Chairman. Dr. Ramona Jackson Jones, yes.
Awesome. 2 prior meetings have been adopted, their meeting minutes. Madam CFO, next item.
Okay, the next item, we have 6 items under the business items. The first will be our Finance Committee report for July 2022. And Director Rosalind Miller will be presented that. Rosalind, I'm sorry, we had a librarian named Director Lett. Our first name was Rosalind, so forgive that.
Okay, so I may hear that.
As a quick point of order, let's let that go last. We've got some other topics that we want to cover
Sure,
first. So
okay.
let's push that to the end.
Okay,
Everybody
no
agrees. There's no objections. We'll just wait to the end. And that's normally how sometimes
Okay.
we keep it up front, and sometimes we don't. But today, let's get to the meat.
Okay, not a problem. So then we'll do the next item, the proposed 2023 budget calendar. Is that okay to do that one?
Okay.
All right.
Yep, go straight down. Yes.
Okay. Wait till they get to it. There it is. Awesome. So actually, before I got here, this had been prepared, and I reviewed it with Ms. Miller when I arrived, and I'm good with what she has. So on August the 4th, the budget was initiated in the system and open for entry by elected officials and department heads. August the 26th, the budget is going to be due from all departments. August 29th through September 9th, the CFO and Ms. Miller and the finance staff will review the budget submissions and record recommended changes to present to the county administrator or the deputy county administrator in our case as right now. September 12th through the 23rd, the deputy county administrator, finance director, and finance staff will meet with elected officials and department heads for their budget hearings, and we're in the process of getting those scheduled. September 29th, constitutional officers and elected officials retreat will occur with the Board of Commissioners. October 10th through the 21st, the Deputy County Administrator, CFO, finance staff will finalize and prepare a recommended budget summary document. November the 2nd through the 3rd is the proposed 2023 budget will be presented to the Board of Commissioners at the budget retreat. I believe everyone should have received invites from Ms. Watson for that. November 17th, we're scheduled to advertise for the public hearings to review the budget. The public hearing is scheduled to be held on November 29th for the public to review the 2023 budget with the tentative, with an adoption rather on December 13th by the Board of Commissioners.
Very good. Thank you. Madam Chair and County Administrators, obviously this is you guys are driving this process. Do you guys agree with this schedule? Are y'all good with it?
Yes, Chairman of the committee.
Vice Chair, yes, sir.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Well, then, since this is this committee, then I'd say through administrative concurrence, if somebody objects, we're just going to leave it as is. That's the official schedule for this year. Great. Let's keep moving. That's it. It's easy. Keep going, Madam
Okay,
CFO.
next item is the 2022 millage rate. As many of you know, we presented the information during the mid-year workshop a couple weeks ago. And during that workshop, we presented that or talked with the commissioners, and they all agreed to maintain the current millage rate of 12.563. That is above the rollback rate of 11.927. So we will be required to hold public hearings, and we have scheduled those 3 hearings, with the first one tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And let me back up, Mr. Chair, is this the time for me to go through the presentation now, or just talk about what we're doing?
Yes, share it now. No, share it now. Well, depends on what you're going to share. What are you sharing?
I'm just discussing. So I gave you all a copy of my presentation for tomorrow. But
You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine, because this is a public hearing. We go straight to the public. There's nothing we can do here.
Gotcha.
So we allow it to be before the full board.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to give a highlight of what we're doing with the millage rate. So that again, we have 3 public hearings scheduled. 10 a.m. tomorrow, on August the 16th at 10 a.m. That will be in person, an in-person special call meeting. Also tomorrow evening during the legislative meeting at 6 p.m. we'll be having the second public hearing. And the third and final public hearing will be held on Thursday, August 25th at 10 a.m. as an in-person meeting as well. And immediately following that public hearing, the Board of Commissioners will adopt the millage rate immediately following that hearing.
Great. Again, that did come up during our mid-year retreat. You present it to the full public tomorrow, allow them to give input on it. You may or may not get any comments from our peers. That's just, it usually say to the end in May. One thing I would like to establish and have a conversation with is that at least can you acknowledge that we're going to be applying the long-term capital policy, in which we're supposed to set aside 25% for any overages. We're going to apply that policy. Is it effective?
Yes, sir. We will definitely.
Rosalind, help out for me too. Yeah.
Yes,
You're aware of this policy?
I am aware. Rosalind and I have spoken about it, and yes, sir. Any policies, any applicable policies that we're required to do, we will definitely do that.
We can just mention that tomorrow for the board.
Okay, yes,
that
sir.
policy will be applied and what that and quantify it for us. Sometimes you just have to say it as stated.
Let me make a note.
All right.
All righty. 25% policy for capital. All righty. Gotcha.
All right. Any comments on this topic? Madam Chair, are you okay?
I'm okay. I'm chairman of the committee. And I believe that it will be beneficial just to set the tone tomorrow with that 25% requirement for the capital improvements. And also the public will be aware as well.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Noted on my
All
note.
right.
All right. The next item on number 4 is the 2021 annual audit update. Last week, Ms. Rosalind and Julie Walker here in the office, we met with Malden and Jenkins reps. Holly, I can't remember Holly's last name. Rosalind, you can jump in and tell me, but she's actually the one that's doing the audit for the county, along with Meredith Lipson, who's the principal, to discuss the outstanding items that they haven't received yet. Rosalind has been working on those, and I saw where she's uploaded the majority of those outstanding items. We advised them that Rosalind would try to have those up to date by tomorrow. Our goal is to have everything done and completed by September the 30th. That's my goal. If they come back and once they get everything tomorrow, and then they send us back, hopefully they'll accept everything, because they have rejected some things that had been uploaded in the past, but we think we've resolved those issues. The state has given us an extension to December 31st to submit our audit to the state, so we will still be in compliance. However, again, my goal is to try to have it done by September 30th, if we can get everything from us to them, to the auditors, and they get everything back to us that we need. So that's kind of where we are with that. That's at the top of my list as a priority, because that really needs to get done as soon as possible so we can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the single audit is something very important. The number one job of the Board of Commissioners is to set the budget. And related to that, 1B is to make sure you're compliant with it, that we do what we said we're going to do. And so this audit is very important. It's statutory required by law. So the point of clarity, did you say September 3rd or September 30th?
30th, 30. The last day of September.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, rarely are we have to ask for an extension, but there must be some extenuating circumstance. But nonetheless, it sounds like you guys are on it, and we're going to move forward, right?
Okay.
Was it just a function of data, or was there something material?
Rosalind, can you chime in, because Rosalind has she had been working on that, so I'm letting her continue for continuity purposes. I am letting her continue to do that because she has all the history that goes with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller, is it
Yeah.
something material out there, or is it just more of a time and data provision back to the office?
It's just a time and human capital resources of knowledge of historical information, institutional knowledge. So that's some of that was missing. So
And Mr. Vice Chair, I don't believe it was anything material. The auditors did not indicate that to me when I had a conversation with her myself. The first week I was here, when I found out about the audit, it was because I know her. I've worked with her in the past at previous places of employment for the last since 2005. So I just called to let her know where I was and that I would be the contact and for her to give me some update on what was going on. And she didn't indicate that there was anything material at that time.
All right, that's what I'm looking for, right?
Okay.
We'll give room for the work through the process. But that duly noted, and so we're working through that. Any other questions on the audit? Because again, it's nothing to say until we get it back. It's just something that I had looked up one time. Like, you know what? We're talking about the news rate. Where's the audit? Because usually that's a talking point. And so that we use some of the things that came out of that audit in that meeting. And I know that was missing. So that was the only trigger. So if you guys are on this, and then we're going to go ahead and let that be as is. You've established a date in which you're shooting for, which is September 30th. So let me note it in the records that we're hoping, I know somebody else has to deliver this, but we're hoping that will be done and we'll have everything that we need as a county over to them by the end of this month. Basically, I heard tomorrow, but I'm trusting that you'll have it done.
Yes, sir.
All right. If there's nothing else on this topic, let's keep moving. Next item.
The next item is the Arbor State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. So it is my understanding that the board may want to step back and punt again, so to speak. I know a lot of counties, when this came out, a lot of us didn't know okay, we have all this money, what are we going to do? So we, Douglas County, back in November, I have a list of projects that were approved, allocations actually. So I understand that we're wanting to look at this and probably make some revisions to this. I had a brief conversation with Assistant County Administrator Stuart Stanley earlier today, and as I was looking through it, based on my understanding of the final rule, which was issued in July, finally we have a final rule. We've been operating off of interim final rules with many changes, but we finally have something that's final now. But based on what I understand, there are some items on here that are ineligible for ARPA funding, just outright ARPA funding. However, there is something in there that allows us to replace lost revenue. And initially, when the guidelines were issued under the interim final rules, you had to calculate your lost revenue. And a lot of counties were in a disadvantage in that calculation because it required you to use grants, the revenue from grants, SPLOST, and other special revenue funds. So if you really had lost tax revenue, it wasn't reflected in that calculation because that number was skewed because you had such a large SPLOST revenue coming in. It kind of eliminated that loss, but you can only use SPLOST dollars for capital. We couldn't use it for operating. So it put a lot of people at a disadvantage. And they went back and looked at it and they changed it. So now there are two options that we can choose from for revenue loss. One of them is electing a standard allowance of $10 million that we can spend on government services through the period of performance. So basically what that means is that we and spend it on things that the county would have spent the revenue on for normal services traditionally provided by the government. That makes sense. So in looking at this list that was provided to me, when I went through and looked at some, I have about $8.5 million of items that are ineligible that we could use that 10 million, use that towards the $10 million in lost revenue to take care of some of these items on here. There are about $3.4 million that are questionable because I'm not quite sure what's all included in those categories. And Ms. Stewart Stanley and I are going to meet tomorrow to take a deeper dive into those items to determine if any of those are actually eligible for ARPA, where we wouldn't have to, try to explain why we're using the funds for this. So right now, again, we have about 8.5, that leaves us about $1.5 million of funding that we can use to allocate towards some additional items. However, as you and I discussed, I want to ask the board to proceed with some caution because we don't know what's coming down the pipeline in the future. We don't want to, this is a one-time pot of money that we're receiving. And my recommendation would be to try to use it as much as possible on those things that's a one-time hit. If we're using it on other things that require maintenance, ongoing maintenance, we need to look at that and the cost of that maintenance because that would be a hit on our general operating fund in perpetuity because we have to maintain those items. So I'm not sure what else we wanted. I know we had some items that we were looking at that I think Madam Chair had shared with Ms. Miller, and she shared it with me as well. And immediately looking at reallocating about $1.1 million. $1 million of it was from the water and sewer for the Future Women's Restoration and Rehab Facility, and then another $111,000 for the water and sewer for the mobile home communities. So the restoration and rehab facility, that project is not moving forward. So I think we're kind of scratching that, or wanting to scratch that project. And then on the mobile home communities for the water and sewer for that we've received a $750,000 grant that would cover the majority of that. So, and reallocate that money to land acquisition for a new library. And Mr. Vice Chair, I think you and I did discuss this last week, was $420,000. There's a request for a street sweeper of $309,000, a mobile library at $200,000, and a transfer station, which was discussed this morning, the concrete pad replacing that. It's $182,000. So those were the things that we were looking at potentially revising the list and removing some of these things and adding some of these things to it.
Great, so thank you for that. So let me make sure I get this right. We don't have to solve it now. We're going to the committee to have a discussion and to give guidance and advice and to go to the full board. So let me ask a question, Madam ACA. So on this list that we have, not just this current year or current cycle, I mean, no, it's a 2-year period we're looking at. Are we looking at 1 year or both years? Because which brings me to my prior question about the audit.
Sure.
Is the grants and stuff from ARPA, all that reflected in the audit? And you don't have to answer. I just want to make that point, make sure we reconcile that. But importantly, on this list of projects that we had initially, it's okay. We had 2 years of programming that we did it out of the gate. In other words, this is what we're going to start with.
Wow.
But now there's a desire to sort of revisit the list. Priorities do shift. We need flexibility. So she mentioned a couple things which sounded like it was year one type stuff. What else is on that list? What's the total dollar amount? And what are the projects that we think that can be below the line, as you call it?
Okay. So right now, of course, we were allocated $28 million. I believe it's $28,425,000, and then $412 additional dollars. So I will tell you this: we were cautious with spending the ARPA funding until we were sure that we were going to get the second tranche, because there was a lot of talk up in Washington, D.C. about maybe not giving the second tranche of funding to the local governments. Due to some of our legislators feel like, county governments had too much or different things like that. So there was a push by NACO to make sure that all of our local governments were making sure that our federal representatives knew what we were doing with our funding, so they knew that we still needed the funding. So, it wasn't until maybe about 3 or 4 months ago that people felt assured that we would get all of the funding in place. So a lot of the funding has not been spent. The majority of the funding that has been spent was on the one-time payments to employees that we did back in 2021 for the salary increases. The CSB needed some money to help with their rent programs and things of that nature. So we really kept it to mostly things that needed to happen at that time. The communication improvements for the county are some of the things that the money's been spent on. And then, of course, when we did our vaccination incentive program, we used that funding for that. So according to the document that is on the screen, we have about a total of $7,161,000 $349 that has been spent. And then the remaining budget is around $21,264,063. So my understanding, I don't know if it's a full revisit. I was thinking that we would just be revisiting those a couple projects that we're no longer going to move forward, or that we've already received some funding from the state for. For example, the mobile home project was a project that we at the time we were considering, but at this point, from my understanding, it's not moving forward. As well as the funding that we received, that we put aside for the mobile home communities. We received a $750,000 grant or ARPA grant from the state to move that project forward. So I don't know if it's a full revisit that you all want to do. Of course, that's at the board's discretion. It was my understanding that it was just looking at the things that we know we're not going to do or we already have funding for.
That's sure enough. So what I'd like to do is you and Madam CFO get together with Madam Chair's blessing and make sure when we come before the board, here's the things that we know we've heard you guys lean toward that we know it's not going to go. And there's other things. I mean, you can also challenge it. So it's not just us like, okay, guys, look at the list now. What we thought last year is not this year. And to your point, it's once every 100 years.
That's correct.
It's okay to take time to be thoughtful about this. Right? We don't always get this. So let's not just shotgun it, but we know it has an expiration date. So it's both. We got to go, but be thoughtful. Just be thoughtful about this. So that's what I'm looking for out of this. There's no action come out here other than the task to come up with a recommendation for the full board to acknowledge. We don't want to move this in committee without making a recommendation to the board. And I'm saying, give administrative current, you guys go straight to the board with this, with a revised list. What came off the list, what sacrificed or below the line, and here's what was added. And we just need that reconciliation like we're going to talk about the SPLOST. Same process, be consistent.
That's correct. We will definitely get together and do that, Vice Chair, and look at those projects that we know won't move forward. So we will get a report back to the full board as soon as possible.
Great. Madam Chair, are you okay with that approach?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. Yep. We know it was coming. I just wanted to bring it into committee, talk about it, to authorize it to move forward, to come back with this revision. Have we taken down the second round yet?
Yes, we have, and that's why I just want to commend our assistant county administrator for just encouraging me to pace myself on some of the projects. And all of the projects are related to the board's discretion, but she just wanted to make sure that second tranche came in, and it arrived, I believe, about a month ago. Tiffany, is that correct? And so the funding is already in the bank here in the county. So we have all 28 million in the bank. That's why our balance now is 21 million.
We spent 7 million.
Yeah, 7 million based on just the list that was provided earlier on the increases, the raises for the staff, and behavioral health, substance and mental forgiveness, and our communication and technology. So we spent 7 million so far of the 28 million, but that was not prior to that last tranche. I believe that was prior to the last, before the tranche came in, last piece.
That's correct, Madam Chair. And we received the additional funding on July 15th, which was exactly almost a year from us receiving the first tranche on July 6th of 2021. So we do have all the funding.
All right. So to that point, Kate, I know y'all were going through the audit, which is related, but that's for last year, not this year. So when you come into the board, show what has been spent to date, and what you're reconciling by way of what you're recommending, and then what got taken off. So it's 3 sections: what we spent, what we plan on doing with the revisit, and everything that we took off the list. And just always keep them together. I just don't want people to say, what happened to this? Let's make a marker that this time the board revisited the list and they adopted it. You know how we get sort of special. So let's make sure that somebody could have put something on there, and if it's the will of the board, then it got sacrificed some kind of way. All right?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
All right.
We have our,
Any other thoughts?
I believe the executive
Deputy County Administrator, you okay? I'm sorry, Madam Chair, go ahead.
No, I just have to believe the executive team. Thank you, Chairman of the committee. Have the marching orders, and I know you were calling on the Deputy County Administrator.
Yes, sir, Vice Chair. Absolutely fine with what we have here. I just asked for the Assistant County Administrator and CFO to let me know when they plan to meet. I'd like to listen in on that, just so I'll be informed on how we plan to move forward.
Yes, sir. We actually
Absolutely. I mean, we got these multiple buckets. Yeah, we got multiple buckets here. And this is something that we're always talking about, a single view of everything and aligning. And we've got to keep our buckets refreshed, keep them consistent. But as we go into these meetings, and we're looking for funding sources, and, you know, we obviously are always looking at, you got the general fund, you got this, and it's always important to keep it fresh. So, Madam CFO, this is our exercise we go through. It's okay. It's very inclusive, but make sure everything is aligned.
Yes, sir.
And that's all it is. Just make sure the numbers are right.
I understand.
All right, guys, if there's nothing else on this topic, then we're going to go to the next item.
The next item is a SPOS update. Mr. Good is going to be giving us a SPOS update.
Mr. Good, are you out there, sir?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, I am here and ready and willing. And thank you, Madam CFO, for the introduction. What right now?
Awesome. You have the floor.
Okay, can someone give me, do I have the ability to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show everything that was reforecasted before. As you guys know, back in 2019, the cost of a lot of things, started going up, where there's labor cost, steel. So there were items that was on the original SPOS that was called additional items, meaning anything that was over the $147 million that we're collecting, countywide. Those are going to be projects that was going to be additional, meaning once it goes above that amount. In 2019, we saw the opposite, was everything was costing a lot. So we did a quote unquote below the line list. So we did a small reforecasting of projects that started appearing below the line. Once the pandemic hit, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and there was a lot of, and we saw even an increase in funding. So we were tasked to do a reforecast. And I believe in either October or November, these different lists were confirmed as being our reforecast. So they were with Parks and Rec, Fire, EMS, and Transportation. Under Transportation, we actually were able to get to a bottom line number of, let me make sure I get it right, of $61,657,370. And that was based upon the original budget of $51 million. Our reforecasted budget actually brought it down to $48,883,484. So the numbers I'm getting ready to show are going to be based off of that. So now I'm going to show the information that we updated when it comes to another list. So let me go to my Excel spreadsheet. And we're going to, again, start with Transportation. Right now, if we finish up everything in Transportation, we are looking at a budget of $59,940,854. That's if you add the reforecasted budget from 2020 and then add in the $11,057,370. Right now, if numbers continue to go where we are now, which is around 2.8 million, we should be able to get to all of the projects in Transportation. But now, if they end up going down a little bit lower, then those projects that we'll call the TIP project, the Transportation Improvement Projects, then a couple of those would be in jeopardy. But right now, with the reforecast, we do not see any projects in jeopardy. What did happen is that there was additional projects, everything that's in Transportation. We have a couple of there were additional projects on the original list. So instead of doing the construction of those projects, we did the design engineering of those projects, such as the Bright Star Road and Calvin Road, doing those sidewalks on Douglas Boulevard. We're doing that one as design engineering. There's a couple of them that we're doing that on. And what I do is I'll stop for each process, or do you want me to go all the way through?
Yeah, let's pause there.
Okay.
So, and thank you for that. But to that point, think about this morning's work session. We talked about a transfer flooring. Where would you put that? we think about 180,000. Yeah, transfer station floor. It's a maintenance project for safety, operational safety. And so, as a funding source, do you think this would be? We have enough money already in left over that we can address this, or?
It will be very close. If we continue with the 2.8 million, then yes, we could get something in there for about 1.2 million would be probably the most I would even fathom to do that in. But because we know the numbers are pretty close, because if we go down to 2.5, then we would not be able to put in the transfer station. But if we continue with the numbers that we're at, then we could. Am I pretty good close there, Rosalind?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Director Miller?
Yes, with your numbering, but the transfers, was it listed as a staff project?
No, I think Commissioner Robinson was just asking if we end up adding it to it, where would it go? Which would definitely go into the safety parameters of transportation, but will we have enough funding to bring that project in if we decide to go through SPLOST to get it?
Okay.
This is, may I speak?
Oh, yes, sure, Madam.
Okay, so based on your number at the bottom, the 61.8 is the forecast revenue collection versus the initial 60.6. So that will leave $1.2 million. I believe that was the question.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that means, all right, so just hold right here for a second, because we're trying, this is an example, we're just trying to solve something, not take off that. Madam Chair, we had a conversation regarding operational safety and transfer. So is this number of 1.2 million, assuming you have to take off every month, you got to build up to this? I mean, it's this time next year we get a fixed flow? Or are you talking about we can do it today? That's my question.
On the floor, Vice. Oh, you want David? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm framing it for you, Madam Chair, but I want to hear. There's money that they're saying $1.2 million. I get it. They reformatted, reforecast. I get it. Is that in June of next year you'll have 1.2 million left over? I mean, we can't get to that project, Madam Chair, until then. So can Director Coward and them hold off enough? Is it that imperiled, or do we got to go now?
On the concrete floor, we need to go now, and I believe we had discussed ARPA. That was on that list that Ramona just read off, the listing of items, the 4 items. We included that concrete flooring emergency, which is 181,000. Right, Fred?
That's correct. I think total about 182,000.
Yeah, just for this emergency.
Yeah, and for Vice Chair, I would hope that we can move forward with that flooring. That's something that is, given he fits down there as far as the safety of it all. So he is definitely wanting to move forward with solidifying that concrete flooring.
So we got a couple of options. And I know we have the money today in this list. And what you're saying that list that we just talked about, the ARPA, we can do it there as well?
Yeah, it was listed among, but the concrete flooring was listed among those 4 items that we just discussed earlier. We had it on there because we knew the source of funding was critical and it's a safety issue and we need to move forward. And we do have this money sitting in the bank now. We just want to get that flooring repaired. Now, a new transfer station is a whole different story. And certainly, hopefully, Mr. Good would be able to crunch some numbers for you in the future to see if we could move forward with a new transfer station with that 1.2 million overage potentially in the future. That would be great. But right now, we just have an emergency for our concrete flooring. Yeah.
All right. So we got two funding sources, 2 options. It sounds like you guys are. So today we're making a recommendation to the full board. Which one do we pick? Now, I know y'all had it on the list, but we're just now hearing about this for the first time on the floor, right? I mean, as a group, right? So I want to make sure that, okay, guys, we're hearing this now. What do you guys think? You got to pick one. Take a position. What is the most appropriate
Let me ask David, is there enough room in SPLOST Chairman of the committee, is there enough room in SPOS for 181,000, Mr. Good?
For the 181,000, looking at numbers, yes.
We can move with that today. That's what I'm asking, because the floor, because we need to start that project immediately.
I'm definitely going to check with Rosalind as well, because I know we are doing the resurfacing. I believe that's close to like 9 million. So I know that's what's going on now. Do we have that amount of money over the 9 million?
We have cash flow. Director Mills, do we have enough cash flow?
Yeah, for 182,000, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking that I'm sure we should, if we're over collecting, then we should have enough cash flow to cover $182,000. It's not like we're talking about $1 million or $2 million project.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Chairman of the committee, we'll yield back to you, but it sounds like the SPLOS would be the most reasonable place to take it from at this time, since the money is there, if it's already available to us.
All right, so since this was broached at the Board of Commissioner level, and really no action other than administrative concurrence, go forth. So what I'm hearing you say for the record is that you're going to go forth with, you're going to bring in front of the full board, to taking it out of SPLOS as a source of funding for the transfer.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate, Chairman of the committee, and then we will, the item is already on the agenda and ready to go tomorrow, and it was discussed in our work session today.
All right, so let's do this formally since it's on the agenda. We can make that recommendation into that path. So, committee members, I'll make a recommendation that we advance the transfer station foreign to be funded at the amount so said out of the current 2016 SPLOS. I so moved. Have a second. Any further discussion? All right. If there's none, let's go around the room. Voting members. Kelly Robinson votes yes.
Ramona Jackson Jones votes yes.
Ramona Jones, yes.
Roger Perry, yes.
Mr. Stanley, yes.
All right, 5-0 unanimous vote. All right, Madam Chair, you got your money. All right, next item. David, go on to your next stop. Sorry about that, David. We had to grab it while we could. Go on to your prior minister.
Chairman of the committee, could I just interrupt you just briefly?
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
If I could ask our deputy county administrator to get with our clerk to make sure that it's worded as such for tomorrow's meeting, that the funding will be, the funding source is SPLOS.
Okay. For the floor.
Or should we wait on the floor to vote on the floor, Commissioner? It wasn't listed today.
No, this is our recommendation. This is our recommendation to the board for tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. So just the funding source is SPLOS. Okay. All right. Yield back to you, Chairman of the committee.
Mr. Good, keep going, sir.
Okay. Okay. And as you know, transportation represents that 51%. We're going over to fire EMS, which represents 32% of the overall SPLOS. What you see are these items that are in bolding letters. Those are the things that we see as changes. So for the renovations for fire station number 4, it was estimated at $800,000. I think there was a small increase of $46,000 more, so that changed this number to $169,354. We also had a estimated input for fire training complex, because we're not doing the entire complex as originally for $900,000. There is an amount that has decreased to about $691,000. Right now we are looking at the replacement of the damaged ladder truck. That amount was increased up to $650,000. And it came out to be in a total of, if you do the reforecasted budget plus the $7.5 million that was asked for increase, that comes out to be $38,697,261. If you do the reforecasted assumption based on where we're going right now, we're at $38,778,821. If we do the more conservative, which is around 2.5 million collected for the next 9 months, or these last 9 months, we're at 38,023,224. So if it's more conservative, there would be a project that would be in jeopardy, which would be that yellow line that shows below the line, that's a tow vehicle and an air light truck. Combined together, that's $445,000.
400, say it one more time, 449,000.
445,000.
45, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Couldn't clarify. Yeah.
Correct. And these projects were
Got it.
projects that was originally below the line from start. So if numbers come in conservative or less than conservative, then those projects would be in jeopardy. If they come in where we're assuming, then we will be able to get to those projects like right to a hair of the amount. Were there any questions when it gets to fire EMS?
No, just again, one more time for the record, we revisit, and we not necessarily always reforecast, but we do revisit these lists because it's a public meeting. And we have narratives out there about what we're going to go do. And it's always about the money. So it's important that we make sure things align. We know that this will cut off at some point. And we have to just be transparent as it relates to where we're going to come in at. And it's not, we're not going to get to it. It just moves to the next season, as they say. So thank you, Mr. Good. I just wanted to establish that. So I know fire, there's a lot of interest in that area. That's important, all of public safety. But again, one more time, if anybody got a hold of that list, an old version of it, they looked at it, and this is when they've heard us talk about doing these things and doing these things, well, guys, it's a function of money. It's a little fluid. Right? And so let's be careful, and let's continue doing what we're doing as it relates to where we're at. And Mr. Good, I know you're doing that. I know you're out there. I know you're always current, but we just had to say it for the record that that's important.
Right.
All right, go to your last one, sir.
Right, and then the last part of this fire one is that this numbers does include the increase on for build out Fire Station 9 as a 4-bay. So that include that 8.3 million is within this this project base I'm showing. Next up is Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec is a little bit different than the other two because when we started doing the reforecast, we were already using quote unquote reforecasted dollars. So they had made to their $17 million. So what came in this one is that there are a couple of projects that the numbers have already been encumbered. The Bill Arp and Fair Play Dugout came in at $773,734.5 per each one. So therefore that's about a little bit over 1.5 million for those two projects. We also had the playground units. I believe that was approved at the last Board of Commissioners meeting of 400,000 for playground units at several parks. And then the $40,000 for the netting, as we discussed earlier at the Chestnut Law Soccer Complex. And there also was, I believe, a heating unit over at the Aquatic Center that came in at $76,200. So all those projects are projects that's encumbered, and that totals out to be basically 2.1 million. And so when we look at those projects, that would be around $19.1 million in order to get those projects in. And right now we do have that amount. Then there's another small amount. If you go in with the gym floor replacement at $70,000, the Deer Lake and Winston conceptual plans at $27,500, scoreboards $63,300, the restroom building over at Chestnut Law Complex, if it's going to be our half, that's $250,000. Then there's park equipment and as well as a dog park. So all of that would come in at conservative numbers of $20,199,837, which would mean that we would not be able to get to everything. And more than likely, there'll be some equipment over at the Aquatic Center that has not been listed out yet. That number would be in jeopardy.
No problem. And again, one more time, we'll never get to everything.
Correct.
Right? We'll never get to everything. The lists are too long. We haven't really maintained over time. So we're just saying get to everything on this round, the current list. But we'll never get to everything. We won't ever catch up, at least not in my lifetime. And we only can do the best that we can. I want to use that as a segue to talk about Chestnut Law. And so you're saying it is on the list. There is something working out. I heard this morning, Director Dukes share where the status was. But again, one time, the fluidness of the need to be flexible. You never get locked into something that you can't make other decisions.
Right.
And that their priorities do shift. So Madam Chair, contrary to public opinion, which is a very small public opinion, we've managed this spot quite well. We've delivered it. We've optimized it. See, every now and then you got to adjust the heat up. You can turn it up and burn some, or you can slow it down sometimes. Right? And what this approach shows is that it's a little flexibility, a little fluidity. You just can't be stuck and be so linear that you didn't realize that the Earth is round and you went off into space somewhere because you thought it was flat. So I said to say, well done. You guys are doing a great job on this point. I always want to acknowledge that. So at least I know what SPLOST, I know exactly where I'm at. Yeah, you've done a good job, David, of maintaining it. So I just wanted to make that comment just to acknowledge, because now I have Madam CFO who's brand new to this, and this is her first meeting. So I have to acknowledge that. And David, you got to maintain that comment now. I put one out there, but it's on you. All right, keep going, sir.
Oh yes, and the last thing is I definitely want to thank Madam CFO. We spoke a couple of days ago talking about this, as well as Director Miller, making sure that numbers made sense and that the information I gave to you guys, you can actually take that and run with it. So I appreciate both ladies for that, and turn it back over to you, Mr. Vice Chair, Chair of the Committee, Vice Chair of the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. Deputy County Administrator, Madam Macy, are you guys comfortable with what you're looking at? I need y'all to have assurance from Madam Chair. Do y'all get where we are regarding this boss and what we're doing?
Yes, sir. I meet with David on a regular basis, and so I'm well informed, Vice Chair. Thank you.
All right. Madam Chair, are you okay with this? This is just for us to revisit that. We're always mindful of where we are at any given time. Where we stand.
Yeah, I'm fine with it, with the chairman of the committee. Certainly appreciate the compliment regarding how well we've managed this loss. We have done quite a bit. I'm just blown away by what has been accomplished. I believe we started off with maybe 70 projects. Now we're on the radar for 96 projects, and even more, I guess, if the funding, if the proceeds keep coming in at the rate that it's been coming. But I did have a question regarding price creep for Mr. Good. Mr. Good, I did have conversations with Gary Dukes last week, and he mentioned that the dog parks that we wanted to build, I know we had allocated $25,000 for the dog parks, but now the pricing is hovering around $75,000. So can you meet with him to see what's going on with the dog parks? I know we have one that's scheduled for District 4 and then one for District 3 as well on the radar. And I was like 75 from 25 to 35. So if you could just follow up with him. So you can, and then last but not least, if we pivot back to the fire and EMS, the tanker we mentioned this morning, particularly the chief, because that's another moment of time that we have to manage the unexpected, and we need a tanker. That $500,000, I know you, Chief Delegate, has had conversations with me. Are we able to couch it in there anywhere with the proceeds coming the way they are when I said it's lost?
We definitely will see, because I know that a lot of times the Board of Commissioners have projects that's considered safety. And a lot of times the safety projects are things that you need to get to. With that, as long as the fire chief understands that there might be some equipment purchases that he's trying to make later on, that they could become in jeopardy if the numbers don't come in, that's just what we'll be at that point in time. But since this is the emergency, and I believe that the ambulances will be more so just to, keep the fleet fresh, that, this is something that we could definitely talk to him about and see how we could finagle it in there and get the citizens what they need in order to fight these fires on I-20, as well as in areas where we don't have a lot of fire hydrants.
Yes, and we've had some pretty unprecedented big fires this year.
Yes, ma'am.
That prove that the tanker is very much needed. Okay, well, I yield back to you. Thank you so much, Mr. Good, and I yield back to you, Chairman of the committee.
You're welcome, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so but to that point, got this pumper truck, and it's good. Thank you for your comment. We only got $1, guys.
Yeah.
Something's not gonna make that you clear. Somebody go get a chair. And I think with that, while I hear that we got a lot of needs. I mean, everything's important. But I think what we're saying is that what I just heard was something ain't gonna make it over there. And this is my comment about a month or two ago. Y'all need to slow down over there. Y'all got to pump the brakes, no pun intended. Y'all are burning. Are y'all keeping up with this burn rate? And so, again, we got all these things we're going to get to. Like, gosh, I'm not going to be able to do all this. It's about setting our own expectations. So I think that's probably in your next fire and EMS committee. Y'all need to figure out what projects. Not about the money. It's like, okay, well, some ain't gonna make it. Yeah, I got to reconcile that. What I don't want to do is get all the way down here. Oh, we got to go into the general fund to fulfill something that was supposed to be done in the SPOS. That would be unfair. Naturally, we're sacrificing, so you can't just stuff it. So we need to be thoughtful and be aware that, okay, if we do this public trust, because I just heard that it is now a higher priority, out of the priorities, it's the alpha of the priority. Fine. That means 2 or 3 things down that was on the list get pushed out. Y'all need to identify which one, at least be prepared to when that decision comes, what gets sacrificed. So I don't think it's something we can solve here. I think that's really a functional committee over there with Parks and Rec, let them, Fire and EMS, let them resolve it, and then you can go from there.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, you understand? Yeah.
Got it.
All right. All right. Is that it, David?
Yes, Commissioner, that's everything, but I'm available for any additional questions.
Right, Madam CFO, are you okay with what you just heard?
Yes, sir, I am. I had some questions for Ms. Roslyn, some information that I would like to get, and David and I are going to get together as well. So, yes, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, you're going to take it offline. Okay, got it. All right, then if that's it, that satisfies that item. Madam CFO, next item.
All right, so we're back up to number 1 under business items, which is a finance committee report. Ms. Miller's going to do that for us this time. But before we go there, I need to make a point of clarification. When we voted for approval of the minutes, I think I voted yes. However, because I wasn't at those meetings, I need to change my vote to abstain from voting because I did not attend those meetings. Just want that to go on the record.
Duly noted. We've been there before on that, but you still just acknowledging that there's meeting minutes
Okay.
that are there. Not
All
that you were there.
Good job.
Because
Okay.
they're codified who was there. You're just acknowledging that you're voting to adopt them.
Okay.
You're
Gotcha.
good.
I'm good. Okay.
I appreciate the awareness. That was good. That was good. You're good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Roslyn.
Okay, well, good afternoon. We'll go over the
Yes, you.
financials, and this is for the month of July. These are some of the highlights, what you'll see when we go into the report. The revenues is over 2021 when you compare, and I'll be comparing last year's to the financial numbers that you see today. And the revenues are over 2021's revenue by 7.6 million. Some of the bigger items are increased that make up the 7.6. We have prior year taxes over last year's 560,000, and then the loss over compared with last year, it's over 1.4 million. And then you have charges for services, it's increased by $1 million from last year, and for 2022, we received tree replacement fees of about $780,000. And for your other financing sources, it's the 3.9, and that is a transfer from Arbor, and that was to fund the pay increases and the living wage in this initiative. Also, SPLOST revenue, as David mentioned, continues to increase, and when you compare July to last year, it has increased 14% or $388,000. This is the summary of the 4 major funds, and you have your, the general fund and Inc., and then the fire and animal control. On this report, if it was at the end of the year, this would be the key place to take a look at your ending fund balance. But of course, you see for general fund, you're over expenditures is over revenue, and that's only because the timing of revenue. Um, as you know, you receive majority of your revenue towards the end of the year. So right now, it's showing that your expenditures are over your revenue, and you're eating up your fund balance that you ended last year with. So your ending fund balance is 8.7, but you have some obligations that you have to restrict the funds. And when you do, and some the biggest is your encumbrance. Also, it means outstanding your outstanding POs, your obligations, and then you have some other obligations. Your unassigned fund balance. That means funds that you have that you can use for operations of the county government. It's at 236. Again, these are key numbers that you usually look at towards the end of the year. And the same with the income, unincorporated. Not all the revenue is in for your uninked fund. It's eating the fund balance that you ended with last year. And then, however, your unassigned is 1.8. For fire, fire's revenue and expenditures. Revenue is really close to your expenditures, and with fire, as you know, fire receives their allocation from the cities and from the county, and it is on a monthly basis. So they don't wait to the end of the year. So their cash flow is a lot better than general fund. So as you see, they're not in the negative. Their revenue is not. Their expenditures are not over revenue. Their ending fund balance is 830. Unassigned is $273 dollars. And you have animal control. The same with animal control. They receive the revenue from the county and the city, so they don't wait at the end of the year to receive their funds. So therefore, their cash flow, they receive money on a monthly basis. Okay.
Mhm.
Right. And their unassigned is 517. The next is going. The next report is the detail of your revenue and expenditures for general fund. And as I mentioned, I'm going towards the end. As I mentioned, that you're about when you compare the 32.4 million for July of this year, and you compare it to the 24.8 million last year. Again, it is due to loss increasing, and prior year taxes has increased, and also the tree replacement fund. And then, of course, you're transferring in from Arbor. Next is your expenditures. The expenditures are also under budget. It's trending under budget. I'm coming towards the end. I'm at the end of the report, and so if you look at as of July of this year, your expenditures is 65.5 million. Last year it's 58.62. And you have a lot of initiatives that's in this budget that was not in last year's budget. One, you have the DDS project is included in this 2022 budget, and of course your salary increases. But however, you're still under budget. You're trending under budget. You're about 1% under budget. At this time, you should be at about 58% spent. You're at 57. The next is the uninked fund, and you see that when comparing uninked, last year's revenue was about $2 million. This year it's $2.7 million. And expenditures, last year 5.4. This year, as of July, expenditures is 5.5. And the uninked fund is under budget at 4.29%. So we're trending under budget also. Then you have your fire protection services and EMS. Fire has collected about 59% of their revenue. They're trending right in line with last year's revenue.
Okay.
Their expenditures, last year was 9.6 million. This year is 9.9. And fire is under budget by 3.26%. Animal control has collected about 60% of their revenue. Their expenditures last year were $676,000. This year is $742,000. And animal control is 11.16% under budget. The next is the contingency fund. This is a summary. So far, the total contingency, your contingency budget started off at 478,786. You have total expenditures at $340,226. Remaining balance is $138,560. However, you have outstanding encumbrance of $35,553. So we're going to adjust the remaining balance to account for your outstanding POs. So your adjusted remaining balance is $103,000 for your contingency fund.
How much is left again?
103. Yeah, 103.
Got it.
The next, when we were discussing this report, when we were discussing the 100, is there enough funds to pay the 182? This is the amount of cash on hand. It's your the pay-go, and it's minus out any checks that we've cut so far. So you have a $36 million balance for cash flow for all projects, but that does not include your encumbrance. The next is your loss and loss, and as I mentioned, the loss is trending very well, and of course loss too. Compared to last year at this time, you're over $1.4 million from last year for your loss. And if you look at your SPLOST, you're over $2.2 million.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
The next is the health care fund, and it's healthy. You are, as of the previous years before COVID, the fund was in the negative, the fund balance. However, due to COVID and where when the healthcare kind of resumed, stopped or slowed on normal operations, it helped the fund to, I guess, help the fund balance, replenish the fund balance. And for the year of 2022, as of July, your expenditures are under budget at 47.83, and that is based off of your claims.
Got it.
And I think that is it. That's all I
Okay,
have.
thank you very much. All right, committee members, are y'all satisfied with repeating the report?
Yes.
Sir,
Okay, silence is being that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right,
that's good.
right, we got one more topic that I'm going to add to the agenda. We talked about it, Madam Chair. This is to deal with salaries for elected officials. And I'm making this as part of round two of my the legislation that was sponsored last year. I'm just using this committee as a marker to look at this. And it's more about not necessarily the number, it's the process. And it's how do we normalize, how do we have a process in which we approach that the average employee. But how do you deal with us, for example? You know, the Board of Commissioners has put their stuff out front in the public's eye. But how do we handle situations that for our peers and be consistent? We had a recent, at least an inquiry, which is, and I say this for the record, they wanted to go through, basically through executive session, was that we would bring it up. And I think that's unfair and inconsistent with the current atmosphere we have, that what everybody's got to get in the ring. If you're elected and you qualify to run, you know what it means. You're elected and the scrutiny you come under. So if you want to raise, you got to get out there and ask for it. In the Board of Commissioners, though, we don't control constitutional officers or judges stuff. We do control that purse string. And there's rules. And again, with the treatment and the inconsistent and the egregious treatment that happens sometimes, it's unfathomable that we're where we're at. But if money wants to raise, well, you got to show me why you should get it. And unlike my peers, I don't have to go through that. I still have to say yes or no. And so, Madam Chair, I think, again, we're going to handle it legislatively as a marker. I think I agreed amongst us that we would bring it forth, talk about it in finance. But if there's some other thing you want to do with this, Madam Chair, other than, it's a process. And so, again, we've got a placeholder for this that will come up here soon. That we looked at it last year, level 4, level 3. We did ask our new director of HR to be on standby now and get ready. And she's got to get with our CFO, Madam CFO, and take a look at this. How should we handle that? Y'all about to go into the budget process. So one more time, if it took 2 times to get a bill passed, and that's okay. But this is something that needs to be thoughtful. It should not be a cloak and dagger, silent backdoor transaction. It's got to be in the public. So, Madam Chair, anything else you want to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I do. Chairman of the committee certainly had Rosalind Miller and our CFO, Ramona Bivens, take a look at just the not only elected officials, but the judges within the system that are paid solely by the county. And that's where the conversation started. And I believe, Rosalind, you have taken a peek at that, and also Ramona, and we've identified, I believe there are 4. And we was just, that's something, I like your idea. It may be something that we need to put some policy around it or legislation, but in the past, it's just, I guess, been a head nod on how these raises are awarded to these 4 individuals. Rosalind, do you have an update? I believe you had an opportunity to look at it. And
yeah. So the magistrate is paid. I went back to historical, and they have a local, meaning the board would do a COLA, and then also the state. They would take the state. The coroner, there's nothing established. For the state court judges, there was nothing established. And when I say that, meaning to pay them a COLA or a merit.
Yeah.
For the solicitor, that office would receive an increase if the state judges receive the increase, because her salary is 75% off of their the state judge's salary. So if the state judge gets a COLA, her salary would increase. Juvenile court judge, it's a COLA, and the board would approve, I believe, a merit, because I've been seeing two different wording, COLA and merit. And the district attorney's office, they just received a supplement, a $46,000 supplement, and there's no history of a COLA being added to the salary. And I just did a quick estimate on the salaries of the offices that I just mentioned, and the increase, it would be about $50,000.
So that's where we are, Chairman of the committee. We were just trying to explore some of these gaps within the organization that may require policy and some legislation as we go forward, but at least we were able to pick up on it. And because what prompted our attention was the ARPA funding when it came down, it certainly was not exclusive to elected officials. So we said, well, wow, in the past, these elected officials have just been part of the merit increase with our normal increases with our staff in the past. But ARPA kind of raised our attention, and we said, oh, how do we proceed? So I'm interested in legislation that may be coming forward. I'm interested in being part of the voting process, and we'll go from there. That's all I can say. Would you like to add anything, CFO Evans? I'm not sure how you did it at your last in Clayton County. I know with your experience, just not sure how it was done.
So they made some changes where when we did not give the state, I don't believe we gave the state court judges an increase whenever our employees got an increase. It did require legislation because we called it a supplement. And the board had a resolution where if they wanted to increase the supplement, they had to do another resolution to increase the supplement. And what I understand from our conversation last week was that because we here in Douglas County pay the state court judges, we pay them similar to we pay our regular county employees, so that they're entitled to, if we give a COLA to our employees, they're entitled to a COLA on their portion that the county pays as well.
Okay. So Chairman of the committee.
Is that correct? Am I correct on how we do it here in Douglas County?
Yeah, that's how it's been done in the past traditionally, but certainly there's opportunity for discussion. And those state court judges right now, they do not receive supplements. So you say your judges in Clayton receive supplements.
Well, I just thought about, I take it back. The state court judges, they were paid a percentage of the superior court judges, but it couldn't exceed a certain amount. And then we just had new legislation just recently, and I can go pull it and look at it to see where we changed it, because we were trying to untie people, even the commissioners, from the superior court judges, because a couple of years ago, the state was given a huge increase to the superior court judges. It had a negative impact on our general fund budget. So that's one reason why you want to try to untie people from the superior court judges. So as the state continues to give increases there, it doesn't have a negative impact on our general fund budget. But I'll get the information and also check around some other counties and see what we're doing, and we can go from there and see what works for Douglas County. Doesn't necessarily have to be what other counties are doing, but it doesn't hurt to look and see, and then see if something may work for us better than what we have, and it can be consistent moving forward, if that makes sense.
It's benchmarking opportunities, and that's where we are. Chairman of the committee, certainly nothing has been set in stone. That was just an opportunity to just say, this is another opportunity for discussion for legislation. And I yield back to you, Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But great conversation to that point. And we think legislation is not like transactional. Legislation is broad. It's big. It gives you room. I mean, not only do I want to look at the COLA, look at again, the supplements, all of it. And again, all the elected. Because whenever you do elect a person, you know it's going to be political. But there's nothing here, so Madam CFO, nothing's in writing.
Correct.
It's whatever the board at that moment decides. So historically, it's always slipped through the back door. You never saw a current atmosphere. Now they act and like, the times that then came in that executive session and stuff just moved and they didn't blink, right? But it's best to have something to stand on, which is why you're here. Yet we're saying it's okay to pass fast. Let's mature ourselves legislatively. Let's just codify it and be done. And so that's what we're looking for. It's more about we get to pass. But again, you got, then you do this one, the next one on. You didn't know about me. What about me? What about me? What about me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it puts the board and us in an awkward place. Now, I have no problem with having the conversation, but it's always, it can turn left on you. You can have it in writing, and we're thoughtful about it. And that's why we brought up that level 3, level 4. And I think, so guys, what's going on here? We got new HR, new CFO. I think it's the time. I'm sure we can probably get it done now. I think there's probably a more of a will and understanding why to do it. Not that they were not courageous. They didn't understand, my God, y'all, we could have been done this. The Judicial Committee, we brought that up back in 2019 when the probates were like, gosh, I need to do this all at once. Nobody could hear.
Mm-hmm.
It was somebody's been about what they shouldn't get. Like, God, y'all cut your nose. Like, what are you doing? We could knock all the judges out on that same day. It went a different way. That's okay. I'll go with the majority. It could get all elected last year. Oh, okay. I mean, so sometimes it's about being holistic and policy wise. So no need to belabor this, but I'm sure I think this was good. And I mean, again, you're already going into the budget cycle, and I get, but you're not entitled per se unless it's because it requires us to vote. Right? So in other words, well, what do you think about this? And if we're going to do it, let's do it right. I don't have a problem. I'm not against it. I'm just saying I want to make sure we do this right and be done with it. And so that's it. So, I mean, I'm good and no need to belabor this. We both did what we said we we're going to do. And so we got it out here. And so we'll see what the full board says. So, all right, we're going to do it like that. All right, guys, if there's nothing else, yes, I'm sure, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, I said sounds like a plan. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. All right, committee, if there's nothing else, Madam CFO, is there anything else needs to come for this clip?
At this time, no, sir, I don't have anything else, and I can't think of anything else at this time.
Mr. Vice Chair?
We're good. Yes. Yes, David.
When Rosin was presenting, I realized there's one thing that I did not add to it because it's nothing that SPLOS covers, but under the SDS, there is an amount that the city of Douglasville does give to our fire department when it comes to SPLOS, when it comes to projects that we are doing that's going to affect the city of Douglasville as well. So I'm not sure if Madam CFO or Rosalind has the numbers that were coming in, but I believe the last check was 1-point-something million that we got from the cities. And once we build fire station number 9, we will receive some more revenue coming in from the cities according to the service delivery system that we have in place.
But the service delivery is it's maxed at 20 million, which equates to with their percentages about 24%, which equates to about 4 million. So we'll the biggest portion, and I say 4 million because that's the biggest portion, and that's the city of Douglasville. So they've paid a little half of that 4 million. So they owe another 2 million. However, we have to spend the money and then send them proof of payment. However, in the board meeting, I think it was the work session, I know that this the city did mention that they would be open to just giving the county the remaining funds. So I think that may be something that, I'll talk with CFO Bivens, that, finance would be interested in just getting the remaining, the money that they owe. But like I said, it maxes out. So we, it's just another half. I think it's about maybe a little over $1 million.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me.
And that was it,
Yep.
Chair. The committee.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I'm very sensitive to the SDS and lost conversation. I'm trying to stay in my lane, but do know that if there's an impact of something that is already is part of 2016 that we haven't accounted for or we should account for by way of cash flow or actual projects, let's make sure that's factored in as well as a variable. Thank you, David. Well, there's nothing else that needs to come before this Finance Committee. I guess this is August 18th, 2022. Let this meeting stand adjourned. Thank you all.